the glue dried, and before I came back I quickly just stitched around the edge, not the top edge, just around these edges. The reason being, you don't need me to say to you, you need to stitch around here now, and I didn't need to show you stitching. It's quite easy to stitch around. And then if you find you've got any of the back or front overlapping, you can trim around the edges just to even it up. You stitch at 1/4 inch seam, and Sammy does actually say in the Shamballa bag instructions that you can trim to a few millimeters around the edge, so just to tidy it up. And then we have the closure. I'm doing a twist lock closure. There are various closures you could choose to use. I did pick up a heart one originally, but then decided that as I've got umpteen amounts of the oval one and only 2 heart locks, I would just do this one. So we need to work out where we're going to place it, etc. You want it to be central to this part, and the ruler, yeah, says it's 2 inches by 2 inches, so we've got a nice 2-inch square to work on. And the twist lock itself is 1.25 inches wide and just under 1 inch deep. So where do we want to place it? First of all, I look to see where I roughly want it, and because I am a bit of a neat freak as such, I really want it to be exact. So I'm going to mark 1 inch up and 1 inch in, and just place a dot as best I can with this chalk pen. Sometimes you have to encourage it to leave a mark. And then I'm going to basically all but eyeball it. And I'm quite happy with where that's sitting, but I want to make sure, and that's 3/8 of an inch that way. I've got all sorts blocking me from measuring properly, and it's 1/2 inch that way, so that just goes to show it wasn't exact. So if I move it over slightly, so that's just 3/8 plus 1/2 that way, and 3/8 and 1/2 plus that way, and then it's 3/8 that way and 1/4 that way. So I'm just going to move it down very slightly, and I'm actually quite happy with where that is now. So I'm going to go around making quite a heavy mark round, and again in the holes. This is when I think, oh, it'd be nice to have a light fabric so I can really make a clear mark. So I don't know if you can see I'm going the wrong way. Everything's a mirror image. So I've got the circle and then the dots, and you do need to make a hole for where the dots are, because that's for where the screw will go. Just realised I've got it on quite a large one actually. I don't need it to be that large, so make a smaller hole for the screws. And again. And you need to make a hole for the lock. So what I do is I start by making holes with my hole punch. You can buy, I mean, I've got the green machine, and you can buy actual dies to do these holes with, but I haven't. So I just use my trusty craft knife, and you just have to fiddle about, minding your fingers as you go. So you really do have to sort of fiddle about just to get everything where you want it to be. It's worth spending the time on so that the lock closes properly and you don't see any rough bits of frayed fabric, etc. hanging about. So I'm happy with where that is. I put the back on, and then it's time to screw back on. You soon know if you don't get a good hold on the screw and the thread in there. But I can feel that I got a good hold on that. And then you can just see a little bit of fabric poking out there. So before I close it up firmly, just want to poke it back in. That's it. Now some people like to glue the lock. If you want to glue it on as well, that's fine, but I don't feel I need to. Right, so that's nice and tight. And so there's the lock in place. And if you look in there, you can see that it's firmly closed too. Oh, I'm going the wrong way again. And on the back. So the lock's in place. I'm happy with where it is. Looks good. Right, after we've done the lock, the next thing to do is the connectors. So we get the piece of connector and we draw a line along the centre like we did on the fabric strip. Right, this is 3/4 of an inch deep. So we want to go half of that. It's not 3/4 of an inch, I beg your pardon. It's 1.5 inches, so we need to go 3/4 of an inch. I was going one step ahead of me. 3/4 of an inch in and draw a line. And then we get our good old double-sided sticky tape. Do you know, when I used to sew like 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have any of this at all. We didn't even have fancy feet for our machines. We did straight stitch and zigzag stitch. And yeah, it was amazing how much sewing has come along. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I love the gadgets we can get now. Okay. Peel off your backing. Oh. And then meet in the middle again. And then what we need to do is sew along both edges. I quickly popped to the machine and sewed along the outer edges and just trimming off the threads. And there we have both edges sewn. And then we need to divide them in half. So, using my ruler, measuring, it's 3.5 inches. So that's 1 3/4 in. That's 2 matching connector strips ready. What we do next is get your D-rings. So I've got my D-rings, and then making sure you've got the raw edges in. So put your D-ring on and then put them together. And then just clip them to keep them closed. Same with the other one. I just want to trim the threads. That's it. And clip them there. So we've got our clipped connectors, and we get one of our external main panels, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because I find it easier to do everything with a bit of double-sided sticky tape involved. So I'm going to put a small amount on the inside, a short piece on the inside. And then fold it and press. I'm just going to clamp that for a moment while I do the other one. Oh, that's a bit long, that one. A bit carried away. D-ring and fold that closed. Just clamp that for a moment, and then to help while I sew it on to the main panel, put some more double-sided tape. And then, I mean, you don't have to do this. If you want to do it without the tape, by all means do. But you can't pin it. I just want to make sure it's correct. And then get your ruler. And then 1.25 inches down from the top, you want to place your seam connector, your connector there, and then do the same on the other side. I thought I cut a piece ready, but I don't think I did. Oh, I put it on there, that's why. It's already on there. Okay, and the next side again, 1.25 inches down. And then place that inwards as well. So the edge of the connector is on the edge, of the bag. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure they stay put by putting the clamp on that side whilst I quickly sew this side, and then I'll sew the other side. So both strap connectors are sewn on 6mm or a little bit less seam allowance. And the next part is to add the other part of the twist lock. And it's not so technical this time, it's just a couple of lines that you put through your fabric. So we need the pattern piece for this. Which has the guide for the twist lock. Now, I normally cut them out and I haven't this time. So I will just show you. Because if I have a hole to work with, then it's much easier to mark. So there we have it. And then place your pattern piece, line it up all with the edges. And this gives you your square that you need to work within. Obviously I don't want to cut lines that big, and sometimes you can use your washer to mark a hole. And yeah, if you look, my washer, it won't fit over both. If I stretch it open, it's not going to fit near the base. This goes all the way down, so now it's a good fit. So I'm going to use those holes to work with. So measuring again, I measure everything, honestly. What is it? Measure twice, cut once. And that is so true. It's a 3/4 inch gap for the washers. It's 1.5 inch gap for the box that I've put. So I want to go 1/4 inch in there, 1/4 inch in there, and I should find those markings. They just sit just a little bit over. See, I normally use the washers, but because I'm not using the outer washers. I'm using one out and one in. I just need to alter it a little bit. Right, and there we have it. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to put a hole there and do the same size there. And put the prongs in. Yeah, they're a good fit. So I'm just going to quickly rub out these markings because it will be more awkward to go around it with the lock inserted. So put them in. Now some people will put some Peltex on first and then put this on, and some people don't use it at all. I like to, because I just think it protects everything. So I always keep some rough pieces of Peltex that are, you know, offcuts to use, and I put a hole in one, and then keeping my fingers well out of the way, put a hole in the other one. You might have ironed your Peltex first, that's fine, you can do that. I don't iron it because I worry about it ruining the fabric because it's not meant to be ironed. So I personally don't, but if I'm using cotton or fabrics that don't mind having being ironed, then I will fuse the Peltex to them first. But you don't need to. Right, put the washers on, or the washer. Bend it down. Sometimes I use pliers because sometimes it's a bit difficult. Press down as much as it will go. Now I add another piece of Peltex here because I don't want these parts rubbing against the lining fabric and creating a hole. Now you can't really fuse it to there, so I glue it. And I put quite a good amount of glue on. And then I use, the good reason for not fusing the Peltex down on the other one is that you can actually use the underneath piece to clamp the two pieces together. And that's my little secret as to why I don't fuse necessarily. So that will be left to dry. Once that's dry, we'll be able to work with that piece.